What is communication? The most basic definition of communication is that it is an exchange of information. But in reality, it's so much more than that. Several scholars believe that information exchange is an essential component of communication, while others view everything we do to be communication. This includes static or scripted events. Regardless, all scholars agree that communication is more complex than a mere exchange of information. Whether or not that's part of the definition is up for debate, but no scholars accept that as a complete definition. There are a couple of other interesting components of communication that are up for debate. One of these is whether communication requires both a sender and a receiver. Some scholars believe that yes, both are required. This would mean that a person talking to themselves is not a form of communication, however. Personally, I believe that talking to yourself is communication. You are communicating with yourself. In this situation, you would be both the sender and the receiver. Another factor up for debate is that of intent. Does communication have to be intentional? Again, scholars disagree on this point, but I personally think that communication does not have to be intentional. Oftentimes, reactions are involuntary and therefore unintentional, but they still are a form of communication. These reactions can tell a lot about a person's true thoughts. So what really is communication? As you can tell, it is hard to define because there are many differing opinions. As a communications and media studies major, this question is the basis of my education. After examining several of these scholarly definitions and combining them together, I believe that the most inclusive definition of communication has two parts. The first part is that communication creates meaning, and the other part is that communication is symbolic. This basically means that meaning lies in people, not in words. I'll repeat that. Meaning lies in people, not in words. Words are interpreted differently by different people based on their culture, past personal experiences, and so on. Communication is dimensional and complex. Meaning lies in people, not in words. To complicate this even further, there are verbal, nonverbal, oral, and non-oral components to communication. That is a lot for people to interpret and create meaning out of.